Have you woken up on a Monday morning and felt that your soul was asking for permission not to go to work? Not out of laziness, but for deeper exhaustion. The exhaustion of those who live disconnected from their own purpose. In the early age, when we finally get there professionally, why do we feel an inexplicable void where there should be satisfaction? There is something deeply disturbing to find that the work we want so much has become a golden prison. And there is something even more disconcerting to realize that despite the proper salary, recognition, and stability, our soul remains hungry. Hungry of what? Of meaning. On purpose. Of a reason that goes beyond survival and tap the core of what it means. The silent awakening of the 30 at the age of 20, we work to prove. At 30, we need to work to be. This transition marks one of the most significant turns in the human psyche, and few are prepared for her. During my clinical practice, I noticed that the 30 decade inaugurates what I called work existential, emptiness, a condition where the individual has all the external elements of success, but experiences a profound disconnection between their essence and their professional activity. It is not depression in the clinical sense. It is something more subtle and, paradoxically, more devastating. It is the gradual perception that we are experiencing a professional life that does not belong to us. Maria, a 34-year-old marketing executive, came to me after 3 consecutive promotions. "Dr. Frankl," she said, "I should be celebrating. I have the position I always wanted, the salary I've always dreamed. But I wake up every day feeling that I'm cheating on something inside me. How is this possible?" The answer is not in pathology, but in human nature itself. At 30, our psyche mature enough to question not only like we live, but why we live. What motivated us in youth, recognition, security, status, begins to sound empty when confronted with the growing awareness of our finitude. The fallacy of external realization. Society teaches us that significant work is one who pays well, offers prestige, and guarantees stability. But this equation completely ignores the transcendent nature of the human being. We are not just biological organisms in search of security. We are beings capable of finding meaning even in suffering, as long as this suffering has purpose. Fundamental error of our time is to believe that we can outsource our search for meaning for external structures. We hope that employment, the company, the position gives us ready what can only be born from the inside out, the meaning of our existence. I remember Carlos, a 38-year-old lawyer who built a solid career in a prestigious office. "I have everything my parents dreamed for me," he told me, "but I feel like being living someone else's life. Every contract I sign, every customer I attend, I feel that I'm moving away from who I really am." Carlos was not sick. I was awakening. What he experienced was what I call the call of authenticity. That moment when the soul refuses to continue to play a role that does not fit to it. The anatomy of meaning at work. The meaning at work is not something we find. It is something we created. And this creation happens through 3 fundamental dimensions I discovered in my practice. The creative dimension, the experiential dimension, and the attitudinal dimension. The creative dimension, work as an expression. The first dimension involves our ability to express our unique essence through what we do. It is not necessarily a matter of changing its career completely, but finding ways to infuse our authenticity in the function we perform. Anna, a 32-year-old accountant, turned her relationship with work when she began to see her role not as processing numbers, but as creating order from financial chaos to allow small businesses to prosper. The same activity, a completely different perspective. The meaning emerges when we can connect our professional activity with something larger than ourselves, when we see our work as a way to contribute to something that transcends our immediate interests. The experiential dimension, the values in action. The second dimension refers to the values we can experience through work. Each profession, however, technique offers opportunities to express fundamental human values: compassion, excellence, justice, creativity, service. Ricardo, a 35-year-old programmer, found meaning when he realized that each line of code he wrote had the potential to simplify the lives of thousands of people. He did not change profession, but changed his perspective on the impact of his work. The problem is not necessarily in the nature of work, but in our ability to see the connections between our activity and the values we consider important. The attitudinal dimension, inner freedom. The third dimension, perhaps the most powerful, is our ability to choose our attitude towards professional circumstances, even when these circumstances are not ideal. During my years in the concentration camp, I learned that even in the most extreme situations, we preserve a fundamental freedom. The freedom to choose how to respond to what happens to us. In the professional context, this means that we can find meaning even in works that are not our first choice through the attitude we adopt. The myth of passion, beyond the follow your heart. One of the most dangerous fallacies of our time is the idea that we must follow our passion to find meaning at work. This approach, though well-meaning, completely reverses the natural order of things. Passion does not precede the meaning. It follows it. When we find ways to create meaning in our professional activity, passion emerges naturally. Trying to make passion for something is like trying to force love. The more we try, the more distant we get from the goal. Juliana, a 36-year-old human resources manager, told me, "I spent years looking for my passion, thinking that when I found it, everything would make sense, but I found that I can create passion through how I choose my current work." The meaning at work is not an archaeological discovery where we dug something that already existed. It is a creative act, a conscious choice to infuse meaning in our activity through the perspective we adopt and the values we express. The responsibility to create meaning. Here we reach the central point of the whole question. Responsibility. In a society that teaches us to externalize guilt and seek ready solutions, accepting responsibility for creating meaning in our work is a revolutionary act. We cannot expect our company to give us purpose. We cannot expect our boss to offer us meaning. We cannot expect external changes to solve questions that are fundamentally internal. This does not mean passively accepting abusive or inhuman working conditions. It means recognizing that, within the circumstances we find ourselves, we have the power and responsibility of creating meaning through our choices, attitudes, and perspectives. Work as a service. The transcendence of the ego. One of the most transformative discoveries that an individual in the 30 house can do is to understand that the most significant work is one that takes us out of the center of our own existence and connects us with something larger. When our main motivation is no longer what I can earn, and it becomes how I can contribute, a fundamental transformation happens in our relationship with work. This change of perspective is not just philosophical. It has deep, practical consequences. Marcos, a 33-year-old engineer, experienced this transformation when he began to see his projects not as opportunities to demonstrate technical competence, but as a chance to create solutions that improve people's lives. "I didn't change company or function," he told me, "but I changed the question I ask myself every day. How can I stand out? For how can I serve better?" Integration, work, and identity. At 30, we face the crucial task of integrating our professional identity with our personal identity. During the 20s, it is natural to maintain these separate aspects. We are a person at work and someone else at home, but maturity requires integration. This integration does not mean that we should define ourselves exclusively for the work we do, but we must find ways to express our authenticity through our professional activity. It is the difference between working to live and living through the work we do. The disintegration between personal and professional identity is a major cause of existential emptiness in middle age. When we spend 8 hours a day being someone we are not, we create an internal fracture that manifests itself as anxiety, depression, and loss of meaning. Time as an ally. The urgency of authenticity. There is something powerful to reach 30 and begin to feel, perhaps for the first time, the reality of our finitude. No more as an abstract concept, but as lived experience. This conscience may be scary, but it can also be deeply liberating. When we understand that our time is limited, professional choices based only on security or status begin to seem not only unsatisfactory, but almost absurd. The awareness of mortality calls us to authenticity. Dr. Frankl, Teresa told me, a 37-year-old consultant, "I realized that if I'm going to spend a third of my life working, this work needs to mean something to me. I can't pretend it is just about money. Navigating the transition from fear to courage. The transition to a more significant work is rarely simple or linear. It requires a particular form of courage. The courage to disappoint external expectations in favor of internal authenticity. Many of us to 30, we carry the weight of expectations, of the parents who have invested in our education, the spouse that has our financial stability, from the society that judges us for material success. Finding meaning at work can mean questioning some of these expectations. But here's a fundamental truth. Living an inactive professional life does not serve anyone in the long run. When we work meaningless, we offer the world a diminished version of ourselves. When we find purpose, we contribute much more valuably. The daily practice of meaning. Creating meaning at work is not a unique event, but a daily practice. It is a series of small choices and reorientations that, accumulated over time, completely transform our professional experience. Start by wondering every morning, how can I use my work today to express what I value? At the end of the day, reflect, how did my professional activity contribute to something greater than my personal interests? These simple questions, consistently practiced, have the power to gradually transform their relationship with work, even if the external circumstances remain the same. The paradox of satisfaction. There is an interesting paradox that I observed. In my years of practice, the more we seek professional satisfaction directly, the more it escapes us. But when we focus on contributing, serving, expressing our values through work, satisfaction emerges as a natural byproduct. This is because genuine professional satisfaction is not an emotional state that we can directly pursue. It is a consequence of living according to our sense of purpose. This is what happens when our professional life is aligned with our essence. The possible transformation. If you have come here feeling that your professional life needs a deep transformation, know that this perception is not a problem to be solved, but a call to be answered. It is your mature psyche asking for integration, authenticity, purpose. This transformation can happen in many ways. It may be a radical career change, but it can also be a radical change in perspective within the current career. It can be starting a parallel project that expresses your values, or it can be finding ways to infuse more meaning in the activities you already perform. The important thing is to understand that you have the power and the responsibility to create meaning in your professional life. This power does not depend on perfect external circumstances. It depends on your willingness to assume the authorship of your own existence. In the early 30s, you are in one position, young enough to make significant changes, but mature enough to make them wisdom. Use this powerful combination to build a professional life that honors both your practical needs and your deepest values. Remember, the most important job you can do is become who you really are. And when you can do this through your profession, you will find out what meaning and support are not opposite forces, but complementary aspects of a well-lived life. If these reflections on meaning and professional purpose have resonated with you, if you recognized your own journey in these words, subscribe to the channel. Here we continue to explore the deepest issues of human existence, especially for those who, like you, have reached maturity and chose to live authenticity. His presence in this community of people seeking meaning not only enriches his own journey, but contributes to a collective dialogue about what it means to live a life that is worth living.